Welcome, everyone. I am Barbara Hogue. I'm the chapter coordinator of the ICAA in Philadelphia. And we've got another wonderful program for you tonight. I'd like to say that we can only offer these programs because of your membership support. So if you like this program, please go to our website after this presentation. It's classicist-phila.org and become a member. And with that, I'm introducing our chapter president, Daniela Voith, who will introduce our speaker tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm absolutely thrilled that you all are here tonight and have joined us for this amazing presentation. I know it will be by Kathryn Herman. For the past 2 years, we have presented virtual talks like this one to the public, featuring nationally renowned artisans, architects, designers, and landscape architects. This would only be possible if, it is only possible because of our sponsors who help us achieve the success, and without their support, really none of this would be able to happen. So with that, I would like to officially thank our jewel level sponsors. They are Cappelletti Builders, North American Window and Door, Peter Zimmerman Architects, Pine Mar, Tradewood Windows and Doors, Archer and Buchanan Architecture, Duration Molding and Millwork, Ernst Brothers Builders, John Milner Architects, Lepage Millwork, Rittenhouse Builders, and finally Spire Builders. So with that, I'd like to formally introduce Kathryn. I met her, I think maybe almost 10 years ago when she came and interviewed at a school for which I've been working, Millbrook School. And I was so impressed by her work, her design sensibility, and that's what's kept me interested in her work and following her. Her firm, Kathryn Herman Design, is a landscape design studio that creates evocative, poetic, outdoor sanctuaries for its clients, and I can attest to that. Nature reliably and magnificently provides us awe, discovery, and inspiration. From this abundance, tempered with the language and the history of the landscape, KHD creates nuanced, layered, and elegant surroundings that complete priorities and resonate with the desire to be in and part of nature. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Kathryn, and we really look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Gosh, thank you, Daniela and Barbara, very much for inviting me to be here tonight. And thanks for everybody who's joined to hear me talk. I really appreciate it. I thought I'd use this background as a little inspiration on what is a pretty cold day. So, and it looks pretty refreshing and inviting behind me. But thank you very much, and I'm excited to be here. So with that, we will get started. So I thought it would be a really good idea just to, talk a little bit about, just introduce who we are and sort of what we do. So we are a landscape design practice. Many people in the office are actually licensed landscape architects. Our office is in New Canaan, Connecticut, but we actually work really just kind of all over. About a third of our work is actually outside of the Northeast. We currently are working in Ohio, Florida. Feels like I'm always on the road. Oklahoma, California, Massachusetts, Maryland, Pennsylvania, really just sort of all over, which really makes it interesting, and it really makes it fun, and challenging, obviously, to work in different environments. 2021 has been a good year for us. I just wanted to throw this out. We were awarded the Outdoor Landscape Design from Veranda this year. And as well as we were given, this is an award that's given by the Connecticut ASLA for our work. And we did win an honor award for a very contemporary project, but it was also a project that's very sustainable, and it was very sensitive, you know, to the surroundings. So we were very honored to win that. As well, this book did come out. I actually wrote a chapter for this book. It was actually published last year, but I wrote a chapter about form. And I think when I go through these images that I'm going to show you, I think you'll hopefully see that, you know, form does play a very important role in the landscapes that we design. You know, without it, really, it's really so foundational to the landscape. And so without it, these landscapes really wouldn't kind of stand up to, you know, the broader environment. So it is something that we very much think about. And this is just the list of all the different chapters that are in the book. If you have not purchased this book and you're interested in landscape, Carl Delator, who wrote the book, and he's also written books about interiors as well. I would highly encourage you to think about this as a Christmas present for people, because he managed to get so many great people to write about so many great things. So anyway, just a little plug. So with that, I think I'm going to get started diving into some projects. What I'm going to do is show several projects. There's sort of two big ones that really, I think, speak to, you know, sort of new developments within the landscape. And we can talk about that, you know, what that looks like for us. I suppose it's different for everybody, but I'm going to talk about it as it relates to, you know, our work, as well as some other projects of different scales. So, you know, you'll get a good flavor for, you know, the different types of projects that we're working on. But I wanted to start with this project. It is in Westchester County, New York. It is a project that we were fortunate to work with Peter Penoyer for, and actually Katie Ritter had done the interiors for this project. This has been for a very, very dear and fabulous client. And I'm just going to skip to the next slide, because I think this is going to speak to a little bit about why this client is such a great client. And it's also going to talk to about like what we see clients asking for within the landscape. And I should say this, I think that, you know, the world has changed, you know, especially with what's gone on with the pandemic. And, you know, really we've started to see a trend of people really wanting to spend a whole lot more time at home and their property. And there's really been a big interest in investing in home and wanting home to be a place where they can bring family back, you know, whether or not it's children or parents or, you know, relatives. But it's a place for people to come back. And so we've definitely seen clients ask for lots of things to go on within the landscape. You know, it's not just about, you know, give us some foundation plantings and we need some screening. That's actually not what we're seeing. We're just seeing this real, you know, sincere investment and interest, and maybe renewed interest in, you know, properties and what goes on. So what I have up on the screen is a plan. This client, this project started out with, I think I can point to this. Yeah, hopefully you can see my pointer, but it started out with this parcel. And shortly thereafter, they ended up purchasing this parcel. And this is the parcel where they, you know, built a guest house, and that was how they hired Peter, and we got involved. And then thirdly, they then purchased another parcel that's above. And so they have been continuing to do this. I should also point out that they purchased this parcel. So they've really made a significant investment in home and what that means to them. And they've really kind of created their own private Idaho, I guess is like the best way to say it. So I'm just going to show you pictures of like the various like elements that we've incorporated over these 4 parcels. We've actually gone on to work for this client, you know, at several of their other residences, but I'm going to show you this one because it's very special. We've been working on this for many, many years. So this has been definitely a labor of love, and it's been a really great working relationship. I should point out that we've been, for this, the landscape contractor for this has been Lupino Landscape and Masonry, and you will see some of their very beautiful masonry work throughout this. But this is the driveway that greets you as you come into the property, and there's this very beautiful, sinuous stone wall along with the guttering system that you see on either side. What's really fabulous about this entrance is the use of granite that really sets the stage for, you know, I think like when you see this gate and you see this entrance, you know there's something special behind. And this is just some of the detail work that was done. I should point out that this client had requested, or actually didn't want, an asphalt driveway. And, you know, certainly there was a lot of pitch to this driveway. So it was very important that we have the gutters to be able to pick up the water. So just a little detail side note. This client very much is interested in the natural and the woodland. This is not an overly manicured, fancy garden. It's not very formal. It's very natural. They're very interested in nature and wildlife and all of that. So, you know, part of the, you know, what they'd requested were some walks through the woods. They're very interested in hiking their own property. This would be a trail that cuts through a wooded area at the top of the driveway. You know, I think it was very important for us to give them places to pause and to really sit and enjoy these, you know, really magical outdoor spaces, the shaded garden. Beautifully captured, this photography is beautifully captured by Neil Landino. You know, just the native moss that's growing here on this rock. As we move closer now into the guest house, this was a guest house. And so, you know, again, it's like nestled up back into the woods. I do want to point out as I flip through these photos, we worked with a stone supplier, and I'm going to point out all the stone that was brought into this project. It was really spectacular. But, you know, this is a chess garden, and you know, I think that the thought is that, you know, they could gather here with family and friends and, you know, have something to do with family and friends, really fun, you know, oversized chess pieces, yet it's, you know, in a garden setting. And, you know, part of what makes up this garden at the back is all this stone that was imported into the site and was really worked into a lot of the native and natural stone that's there. Another thing that we had done for them was to give them an outdoor fire feature. Again, it's, you know, sort of about gathering people together and being able to sit here and, you know, enjoy it, you know, maybe on a cool evening, you know, in the spring or in the fall. And then off to the side of this, we've given them some outdoor seating, places again to kind of relax and enjoy. The seating area is just right outside the spa that we nestled into, you know, what is really the start. It's the toe of a very steep slope that goes back up into the woods. So all of the stone, again, brought in, sort of pieced together to create this natural looking waterfall, though it is recirculating as it falls into the spa, which is again, just like another, you know, way for them to sit and really enjoy this space. Just another shot of that. You know, since this property is 3 parcels that have been put together, circulation is very important. So we have a lot of pathways that go through it. Again, this is, you can see some of the slope here for this. So it was important to be able to have, good footing to be able to get up into the woods and hike these trails. I think, for us, I should just pause and talk about this for a minute. It is deeply gratifying for us when we have clients who really want to get into the landscape and really use it. And, I think just going back to what I said earlier, I definitely think that that's, been something that's just been this renewed interest, with the projects that we're seeing. This was the fourth, I think, addition to this project. There had been a house here. The clients decided to take the house down, but said that they very much wanted a place to sit and just relax and just enjoy their landscape. And so we designed this pergola, worked very closely with a contractor to have this built, and did this really natural, shallow water feature that you see there. And it's done all with reclaimed granite. We used oak for the pergola. It's got some lighting, it's got some place to sit, it has Wi-Fi, it has a barbecue. So it's a really great place for them to be able to walk through their property and sit and enjoy this. And we love that. The other thing too that we definitely are seeing more and more of is personalization of the landscape. And that a really great way to personalize a landscape is through art and, finding a piece that you love and then putting it and working it into the landscape. So this was a piece that was very near and dear to the husband's heart. And another piece that we were asked to incorporate within the landscape is this piece, and it's by an artist named Manolo Valdez, who some of you may know. I just happened to be down in Florida. Unbeknownst to me, it was Art Basel, but we were seeing some of this artist's work out on the streets of Miami. But what we loved about it, this client loves butterflies and nature, so this piece really resonated with them, and so we really wanted to put it in the meadow. And it's very sweet. Sometimes actually butterflies will land on it, and which makes it kind of fun. The next piece of art, this is done by an artist named Eben Armour. The client had seen this artist, I believe, in Martha's Vineyard, and he does very site-specific work. But again, it's about the stone, and he just basically was, we worked closely with him about where we thought this should sit. And I'll just go to the next slide. This sits sort of on axes with this water feature, and we've got it lit, so it's it's a pretty cool thing to look at. I think it's just very beautiful. But he just basically brought the stone in and he just puts it together like that, so it's really special. Another view of the water feature, just in one of its stiller moments. I think it's for us on this project, it was really about respecting the natural environment. And here you see a gate that leads back down into the woods. We have trails that go through the woods. Again, this is just for like broader engagement, with them and their property that crosses the stream. And this is another path that takes you through the woods up into a different direction, and yet another one. And every time I see this photo, and I remember being here, I think I actually took this photo. To me, it's like forest bathing, right? You're in this beautiful woodland with the sun just sort of streaming through. So it's magic. What's really gratifying is that they really love this property and they really use it. So it's great. So I'm going to move on to another project. We did this one a little while back, but we've actually been going back to further enhance this. I think this would be another example of a client who, through the pandemic has been spending a lot of time in this garden, and has come back and requested, better outdoor spaces, more outdoor spaces. Let's change this. let's add some heat, let's add some light, let's change some pathways. But here is the site plan of this property. This is in New Canaan. The architect was Jim Scatino, and Pimlico did the interiors for this. We did the landscape. This was a client who built this house new, so this is a new home. So we were able to kind of reimagine everything from the ground up. Lots of color here. This really engages the client when they're inside. They can look out at this and really experience this garden sort of year round. And what's great about this garden, I'm just going to talk about the form piece of this. You see the hedging behind. You can see the boxwood, the large boxwood globes. In winter, this garden has a ton of structure and a ton of form. So even when it's not flowering with this fabulous color, it still is a deeply interesting garden. I just personally love this photograph. We were trying to figure out what was happening to all the perennials in the garden, and Neil was able to catch this. So we know who was nibbling on all the flowers. But here we see the back of the house, and you get a sense of sort of the layering that we've got going on here. Again, this is more form and structure that we've got. And then we have the outdoor dining spaces. So, they get the chance to sit out here and have dinner and invite friends and family over. And this pergola is actually something that we've just recently added this year for them. They had wanted sort of a better sense of like maybe enclosure, so that they could sit out. And there's a fire feature that actually goes underneath that space. But, I think it just shows like the different elements that can go into a garden, and, how people, enjoy these outdoor spaces. I think, fire features are certainly something that we end up incorporating pretty much on every project. Again, it's just a great place to go and hang out and gather with people. So, pool area. I mean, we do a lot of swimming pools. I think, I just know that all the pool contractors have been just incredibly busy, because that's been high in demand throughout the pandemic. So I think pools are just another really great way to engage with the landscape. And another view of that. And outdoor seating, so important to have places to sit down and pause and, reflect. Maybe you sit out here and you get to do your Zoom calls outside, or homework or whatever it may be. And the other thing to talk about is spas, outdoor spas. Again, it's just about giving people, you can just kind of see like all these great spaces that clients can go to, and they can use them in different ways. So I think this is particularly popular with the young teenage kids. Yep, we hear a lot about that. I think that gets used a lot. This is another project that we've worked on, that we've recently completed and photographed. This is also in New Canaan. I think to show you these different projects gives you a sense of like different clients and their different wishes and personalities. What's fun about this client is that they are really attuned to nature. And I think the wife practices yoga. So the request was for a very minimalist landscape, but yet one that was fun. I know that they love to entertain here. They had their, I think one of their children's graduation party invited like the whole school over, to this landscape. They've, just we're talking about what fun it was to have, but she likes Zen garden. So the request was to do a Zen garden, something that was very still, that they could see off of the axes within the house. So we designed this garden, which is, just pebbles. Those pebbles you see there, I'm going to call them pebbles, are by a company called Atelier Bercant. They're terracotta, and we did some Ilex pebbles as well. But it's just this very simple garden, just off to the side. And then we inserted this very strong paving pattern. It's very geometric. We've got a lot of linearness to this garden. Again, some of the form. But in the background here, you can see a wildflower meadow. And what we did was we ringed the entire property with a meadow. It was something the client was very interested in. We're very interested in. They did have wetlands on this property, so it was very important for us to, make sure that we're, doing the right thing by that. But this property definitely has this strong patterning throughout it. And then you can see, again, like some really strong outdoor seating areas with lighting, great for entertaining. It's good not only for the human clients, but for the four-legged clients as well, who get to go out and enjoy, run around. This is another shot of that pool with the spa built in. So you can imagine what a great place it is to be able to invite lots of people over. And if you look in the background, you can see the cutouts. We did do a meadow, while it is a meadow, I'll show you this picture taken from inside of it. But, while it's a meadow, we still have some geometry to it as it goes around the edge of the property. And then we've, sort of re-echoed some of those pebbles with real boulders in the meadow. So it's fun. An outdoor shower area, which is, great if you've just finished a day at the pool and you want to rinse off. This is looking back at the house at night, and another view of the house, looking at it from the front. So, I would call this style of home to be like a transitional sort of farmhouse. And we wanted to do a landscape that was incredibly clean for it. So the next project I'm going to show you, this is an older project, but I'm going to explain why I'm going to show it. And then I'm going to show you a newer project following. This was done for a client who had purchased a piece of property. This was in New Canaan. The architect was Vincente Byrne. And they built this house. We were involved with siting the house, developing the landscape. I'll just go to the next slide so you can kind of see it. It's very close to downtown New Canaan. So, from this imagery, you should be able to see that. I think they had something like, I'm going to make this up, but, it was at least, 6 or 7 abutting neighbors. So it's actually a pretty suburban lot, but we really packed a lot in for this client. We've got a vegetable garden area. We had a little bit of a maze for them. We did a play area for the kids. We did a swimming pool with a spa. We've got terraces. We've got a bit of a meadow. We've got this sort of formal sort of entrance to the house, with the geometry. Go into it, you'll see, it's just this very crisp, clean landscape at the front. And this is a mix of boxwood with hornbeam hedging. I should point out that these clients are Dutch. So they really appreciated, sort of this very clean landscape. We used, broad brushstroke of plant material. In the back, you see the tall grass. That's Carl Forster, which is a calamagrostis. The shorter grass that's in this image is Little Bunny. And you can see the dining terrace that is here off of the eat-in kitchen area. This is another view of that. It really is magic, especially in the fall when the grasses are inflorescing and blooming. It's just very beautiful and very magical. The pool is sort of wedged out of the ground. The pool does sit at a different elevation from the house, which was our response to not really wanting the pool to be up and that visible. Pools are great in the summer, but in winter they get a cover and they're not so great looking. So if possible, we always like trying to get the pools to be a little subdued within the landscape. And if you look sort of at the head of the pool, you can see a meadow that we've got. And we've done lots of layering in this to try to give them the screening that they needed so that they had a sense of privacy given how many neighbors that they had. This is another view of the pool. Looking back in the background, you can start to see a little bit of the maze that we did with the beach hedging, and some flowers around the swimming pool. Again, I've talked about fire features. This was a custom fire feature. So, I can remember them inviting us over, or they were hosting an event and they had this going. It was so fabulous to be able to sit around this and experience the warmth that this gives off. Again, just really simple, clean landscape. If you might notice, there's a little bird. I think he might be a cowbird sitting up there in that hedge, but enjoying the landscape. We've got a bunny, another one who's enjoying this landscape as well. And finally, we've got the snails enjoying this landscape. So this client, again, wanted to imbue this landscape, with a sense of whimsy and some art. I guess I'd call that some art. And so what I wanted to say is, or just tell you, is that shortly after we finished this project, this client called us up and they said, we have some good news and we have some bad news. The good news is, the bad news is we're selling the house and we're moving. And the good news is we really want you to come and work on the next project. And so we said yes. And the snails said yes. And so here the snails are in their new residence. So the clients picked up and moved to Wellesley, Massachusetts. They purchased what was at the time simply a piece of field. So we had to imagine this project from the ground up. This is going to be the last project that I'm going to talk about. We're going to wrap up here in about 10 minutes. I should say this. So they purchased part of a field. They maybe in the bottom right-hand corner of this image. Actually, maybe I'll just go to the next slide. Actually, I'll flip back. So I think what's really cool is that when we do a drawing, we do a rendering. I think what's really fun is when we actually send up the drone after the project's done and you get to see what the project looks like and how well it matches what we've drawn. But just, going back to talking about, developments in the landscape, this project is just clearly, I would hope for them a forever home. We worked really hard to give them, so many great outdoor spaces. There's so much to explore on this property. I was very fortunate to be again with Neil Landino. We shot this over 2 days. It was absolute magic for me to be there. And I think if I felt that way, I'm surely hoping that the client, feels that same way. But we'll move on. I'll show you the entry. We'll dive into some of these details. I want to point out that we worked with RP Marzilli. They're based in Massachusetts. They did the landscape. I definitely want to give them a shout out. They were fabulous to work with, and they really did execute our vision on this project. So, I know they're deeply proud of this, as are we, for this project. From the stone that they sourced for us, we used tons of reclaimed granite. The real sort of plan of this landscape is this organizing spine of the stone wall that you can see. It's really just behind the gate that is open. You can see that it goes through underneath the barn building, and it picks back up and it becomes part of the house. And then it actually it exits out the back of the house and becomes the back of the pool wall. And if you look at my background, that's the pool and pool wall back there, but we'll go on to some better photos. This is the front courtyard. This property does sit on a pretty busy road. So definitely the challenge for us was to give them a sense of privacy, a sense of exploration, but to also try to help mitigate some of the sound that comes from being on a very busy road. So layering for the privacy was hugely important. Adding water features was hugely important. So we did a lot of study of, how this whole project should be laid up. But here we have the vegetable garden and the cut flower garden. Certainly with the pandemic, most people know that it became impossible almost to buy seeds. If you wanted to do a vegetable garden, it's a great pastime. So here we have this for their use. Very manageable, but they've got herbs and tomatoes and cut flowers and all that in this garden, which is just off the front entry. Again, I can't stress, enough about like how fun it is even for us to incorporate art because they're Dutch. We all know how important tulips are to the Dutch. And so here we have the Dutch tulips out, as a corten steel, piece of art. And the gate is open, beckoning you through the garden, through the vegetable garden and out into the broader landscape across. This is a view of the pool area from the back, looking back at the house. Again, we used a lot of reclaimed granite. This is sort of a rural kind of farm-like property that is set in this field. I think it's also important to just to mention that we, because this is the Philly chapter, we've worked very closely with Larry Weiner and Associates on this. Larry was responsible for the meadows, both at the front and the back. I should point out that we have cool season meadows and warm season meadows. So we actually have two different types. And here you see the pool and you see that organizing spine stone wall that goes through the landscape and stops. And, some of the trees that we've injected into this landscape, but, really, again, this pool is a little sunken. I don't know if it's a little hard to read in this, but you do go down into this pool area. And so you get this sense of privacy. The interesting thing about Massachusetts in this particular town was their requirements for pool code fence. And I would say that was definitely a challenge for us because, here is this, just amazingly beautiful setting. And who wants to see a fence going around it? So we have this fence is actually very short. It's glass. We decided to do glass. This happens to be first thing in the morning. And the reason I'm showing this slide is that if I didn't show you it with the fog on it, you wouldn't know it was there. So that's why I'm showing you this image. But in the daytime, the fog burns off the glass and you get the full on vista of the meadows that surround it. And, here it is a little bit later in the day when you can just barely make out the seams of the glass, but it's beautiful. This whole space is private. It is, beautifully surrounded by meadows. The number of insects, and birds and wildlife that are around this are, just simply amazing. It's really transportive. So again, I think they've got this really amazing place to, hang out and explore. And I should point out that through all these meadows, we have pathways that circulate them around the entirety of the property, as well as into the woods and that take them to the Charles River because they are on the Charles River. There's a picture of the perennial garden. We kept the perennial gardens really small because really they're sitting in one big garden. And here you see the pool area at night, beautiful and reflective, and they get nothing but great, beautiful skies there. So another way to enjoy the landscape is to have a tennis court, which we've done for them. This is nestled in, it's got hedging all the way around it, hornbeam hedging, which fully hides the tennis court, which is great. So another fun thing to do. And This is just a picture of, you know, sort of some of the larger hedging that you can see at the back. They've got beehives, which is another, you know, way to, I don't know, I think take advantage of the meadows that surround it so they get honey. This is the pathway that takes you to the spa. There is a separate spa area. This is looking back the other direction. Again, more meadows. And again, another, you know, picture of the fabulous sort of stonework that Marzilli did for us. You know, some of the patterning. They also have chickens. You know, again, we've definitely seen a lot of people like have a lot of interest in, you know, adding this, but the chickens here, you see the chickens, I think, looking in a very jealous way at the turkey who decided to show up this day for the photo shoot. Side picture of the house, and you can just see how it's just really sort of nestled in and surrounded by these meadows, and you get a little sense of the path there. Here's another picture of the path. I should point out that this client has 3 daughters. So if you're wondering why there were 3 snails, they started with 3 snails because they had 3 daughters. So they had a snail for each daughter. And when they moved to this property, they actually purchased this art. And so each of these represents one of their daughters, which is so sweet. And we put these out in the meadow and they are uplit. So they're really beautiful at night. Another picture of the insects enjoying this meadow, and again, more pathways running through this. You know, I just think there are all these different spaces here. And this happens to be like one of the few areas of actually manicured lawn, which sits like off the dining area at the back of the house. And there's of course an outdoor kitchen. So if they did want to, you know, run around and play sports, we do have a bit of a lawn. And I think I was mentioning water features. We did this custom water feature. It does create sound, but that was to help mitigate the sound from the road. And here it is, like off of the outdoor dining area. So I want to thank you as I go to my last slide. Thank you for being here with me tonight. I really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you all maybe hopefully are inspired by you know, the different things that you can do with the landscape. And yeah, I'm happy to take questions if anybody has any.
Well, thank you so much, Kathryn.
Very welcome.
Barbara Hogue here again. Those were stunning landscapes, and just so lovely to see places where both family can gather and also where you can find a bit of solitude. I mean, it's just stunning. So we do have a few questions that are in the Q&A box. So first question is, who is the sculptor? And I'm not sure who that might be referring to, because I know you've shown a few different pieces of artwork, but that sort of came in sort of at 6:20. Do you know of mind who that could be?
Let's see. Oh, is that Danielle? Well, when I showed the first project, so there was a piece by Manolo Valdez. That was the butterfly piece. The in situ one with all the stone was by somebody named Evan Armour. And I want to say, I think he's out of somewhere in the Northeast. He may be out of Massachusetts or someplace. I actually don't know who the pieces in this last project that I just showed, who those are by. So I can't answer that, unfortunately.
The next question, I love the stone stairs. How are they treated to stay safe, not slippery over time?
Yeah, you know, most of the stone that we work with does have some bit of texture or tooth to it. So, you know, we use a lot of reclaimed granite. Reclaimed granite is, you know, a pretty, you know, I don't want to make this sound overly dramatic, but it is an uneven surface. I mean, you know, you can even it within a certain tolerance, but it definitely has a texture to it. Even bluestone, when we're using bluestone, it would either be like a natural cleft bluestone, or it could be thermal treated, and thermal looks smooth, but it actually really isn't. So, we've never, touch wood, never had an issue with it being slippery. The only time sometimes bluestone, and or any type of stone could get slippery is if it's in a very shaded condition, and you get, sort of lichens or moss or something like that growing on it. But, it's easy enough to, go in and like power wash off or, treat it so that you can take away that surface. So,
All right. And next question. How is sound created in the last water feature?
oh, so maybe I can back up and just go to that slide. I'll put it back up since it's close at hand. So you see this very still glass-like surface of the water, but so the water is actually coming out of the seam that you see on the right-hand side, and it comes over this flat honed surface of the stone, and then it falls on the left-hand side into a basin that is below it. So there's a very deep basin. I should just point out, because we get asked this quite a bit, a lot of clients are like, I need sound. I want a lot of sound. How you create a lot of sound with water is the more drop you can have, meaning like where your source is to where the basin is below is what gives it sound. So the bigger the drop, the more the sound you get out of it. So that is how sound is created in that. So there actually is a chamber below it that the water is falling into and making that sound.
Next question. You showed a few gravel paths. What type of gravel is best for walkways?
Yeah, great question. We definitely have a preference. The gravel we used most often is something that we would call a 3/8 inch native gravel. It tends to be a crushed gravel. It's not a washed gravel or sort of a river stone gravel. So it's got a little bit of a tooth to it. The problem with the more rounded gravels is that you tend to like sink into them. And when you walk through them, you just get this sense like you're swimming through it. So we love the 3/8 inch native gravel. And native is just a reference mostly to the color. You can certainly get different gravels in different colors, but the native is, usually the thing that's like the best, vernacular, from the area.
And another question, what exactly is reclaimed granite?
Yeah. I don't know how far I'd have to go back to in this particular project that I've got up. Reclaimed granite is kind of literally just that. It's reclaimed. So meaning that it's been laid and used somewhere else, and for some reason a municipality has decided to redo a roadway or change something. A lot of granite curbing you'll see, in towns, they'll install it, and they install these like big hunks of granite, right, like on curbs for roads. Well, if they decide to kind of come through and make a change, like that granite comes out, and there are actually stone suppliers who go around and buy all this granite up, so you can buy reclaimed granite. There are people who are out there who just hunt for old stone. What was fabulous about this project that I ended on, Marzilli, they do a lot of really fabulous masonry work, and they've got, they're based right outside of Boston. So a lot of granite actually was used as ballasts in ships. So there's a lot of like big, huge chunks of granite and stone, in the Boston area. I mean, I think, I do follow a lot of my contemporary, other landscape architect practitioners, and, always am so jealous because they use all this great stone. So that's what reclaimed granite is. Sorry, long answer.
Got it. Okay. And one more question.
Sure.
Regarding the boulder waterfall that spills into the spa, how did you secure the boulders together? I'm curious about the construction methodology.
Yeah, so I would say there was definitely concrete involved in setting all of that. Especially, obviously, especially around the spa, right? The spa those stones have to be put together in a way that it's watertight. But what I want to say about the stones that are sort of make up the walls, kind of either side of it, we again worked with a gentleman. The company is called Stone Resource. They're in Millbrook, New York. They can just get us the coolest stone. Daniela, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Anyway, I remember them bringing the stones to the site. They literally could only get one stone on a flatbed tractor trailer, had to use, a giant sort of excavator, piece of equipment to be able to lift it because they're, many, many, many tons. So these stones are actually so big that once they set them, they kind of aren't going anywhere for some, right? The spa obviously is more intricately put together, has to be waterproofed together, but it was just so much fun to be able to like work with Stone Resources on this. And, we obviously got to do a site visit and get to hand select some of the stone and see it brought in. And they could do like one stone a day because it was just so big. So it was fun. Yeah.
And the last person who asked the question also added a very cool design, which I think everything has been very cool tonight. So I just wanted to say thank you, Kathryn, for sharing all of this wonderful inspiration and images with us. And have a great night. And thank you to everyone who came to join us.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
I'd like to reiterate, Kathryn, how lovely it is to see your amazing work. And thanks to the audience for joining tonight. There will be a recorded version of this posted on the ICAA Philadelphia website. So folks can come back and watch again or recommend their friends to come watch it. And that's a wonderful aspect of doing these remote presentations. So your voice will live on, Kathryn, and I'm sure I'll be sharing your work with the folks in my office.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.